Mike Scharfenberg, Game Plan You today, and welcome to another edition of Interview with Influencers. And as always, we thank you for spending part of your Tuesday with us. So let's get right after it. Today I couldn't be more humbled and excited to bring on our very special guest. So this gentleman is really is a testament of trust in the process and working his way up the ladder. He spent about 9 seasons in minor league baseball, working through 5 different organizations, and finally got the call up to the big club and from the Music City, and has been with the Tennessee Titans now for about 5 years. So couldn't be more excited, and thank him enough for spending time with us today. Without further ado, let's bring out the senior manager of ticket sales for the Tennessee Titans, Mr. Jim Rice. Jim, how you doing?
Good, Mike. Thank you. I'm pretty fired up to do this. I love doing these events, so appreciate it.
100%. Couldn't be more fired up. Right along there with you. So before we dive into you and your journey and how you got to the seat you're in today, some great news, right, coming out last 2 days, two negative, days of no negative or positive tests. So that's good, and hopefully the facility opens up tomorrow. But tell us, for the audience here who's not down there in Nashville, like, what's the vibe? What's the excitement surrounding the 3-0 Titans and the big battle of the unbeatens this weekend?
No, I mean, it's been great. I think COVID and the pandemic has tried to squash kind of all, kind of just the momentum we've had ever since going to the AFC Championship last year. Our fan base was pretty fired up. January, February, we got off to a hot start, both from a sales side and just being out in the community. And then COVID hit and things kind of slowed down. And now that we're back to a 3-0 start, the city's fired up. This is the first time we've been 3-0 in about 15 years. So good things to come. And like you said, now that we had 2 days of negative tests, on pace to get the boys back at the facility tomorrow and in line for a game this weekend against the Bills, who are also undefeated. So it should be a good test for us.
I love it. And I think it just goes to show, I mean, this could do, two different things to the team, right? It could bring them together. It could break them apart. And I mean, look at the Marlins and the Cardinals, 2 testaments in the MLB, right? Who had huge outbreaks, and they both made the playoffs, and one of them still playing. So, I mean, that's just a testament, and really, really exciting things happen up in Nashville. So let's dive into you and your background. So let's start with, when did you first discover the business side of sports? And then, follow up to that is, what about the ticket sales and service industry solidified that that's what you want to do with your career?
Sure. So I think, at a young age, most of us that work in sports, we wanted to play in sports. And, once I got to high school, I kind of realized that wasn't an option. So didn't really know what my options were at that point. My first job was working at a local dollar store in my hometown. And my boss at the time always joked about, me working in the front office somewhere. And I didn't really know what that meant at that time. But, always joked that, once I'm running a team, he's going to hit me up for tickets and favors. And then it just kind of got me looking into what my options were at that point. And so I just started researching, was sport management even a thing at universities, and realized it was, and looked into SUNY Cortland, and ended up going to SUNY Cortland and had a great time there. Got a ton of experience that helped set me up to where I am now. And then from there, did several internships, with my last internship being with the Binghamton Mets. That was my senior year. Still really had no idea, even though I did several internships. And at SUNY Cortland, we got to run a lot of the athletic events, but just didn't know where my passion was at that point. And then, during my time with the Binghamton Mets, they kind of rotated me around. So got to spend some time in the box office, got to do some stadium ops stuff, some community relations stuff, marketing, promotions. And then my last stint was actually on the sales side, and got to follow, a couple of the reps around doing group sales and ticket sales, and just found that was my passion. And shortly after that, got an offer for a full-time job out in Indiana, and kind of took it, jumped without even thinking about it. At the time I was thinking maybe go back and get a master's degree, but for me the experience was more important. So just kind of jumped all in, moved halfway across the country from New York to Indiana. And that's where I got my start, and been doing group sales for the most part until recently got promoted to oversee our entire sales office, but been in sales ever since.
I love it. And talk about, because it's so important, especially today. It's hard to get into sports, right? So talk about the willingness to get up and like you said, move across the country. Like, what was your mindset like when you had to make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just knew from talking to, and that's the good thing about SUNY Cortland. Props to them. I mean, all the professors there had worked in the industry, so they kind of knew what it was. They weren't just teaching out of a textbook. So most of them either had experience working previously or were still working while being professors at SUNY Cortland. And so just picking their brain, realized that whether it was my first job or even just moving up the ladder, knowing how competitive the industry is and kind of how limited, the options are, just knew that I had to move. And so, like I said, I kind of debated for a little bit of going back for my master's or taking the position, and realized at the time, for me personally, and it's not the same for everybody, but just the experience was more important. So packed up, moved out to Indiana, and then kind of bounced around, like you alluded to earlier, to a couple different teams in minor league baseball until I got here in Nashville a few years ago.
I love it. It's becoming comfortable and uncomfortable, right? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for you to pick up and move across the country, but I'm sure you wouldn't trade those experiences for anything, because it helped formulate and get to you to where you are today. So speaking to that point, like, what were some of the biggest lessons that you took away from your time in minor league baseball, and how do those apply to what you're doing now in Nashville and help you get through your day?
Sure. I think there's a ton of them. I mean, a lot of them come down to the same reasoning, which is, in minor league sports, it's a much smaller staff. The first one is, because of that, you're wearing several different hats. So you kind of get to see the inner workings of how every department works. Even though you're a sales rep, you're still involved with the community relations events. You're having to dress up as the mascot, getting ready for opening day. We're all kind of maintenance people. So we're changing light bulbs, cleaning up around the stadium. Game day, if it rains, we become a tarp crew. So we're putting our tarp clothes on and going out there and, pulling the tarp, raking the field, getting it ready for game day. So just kind of seeing the inner workings of an organization helps you for your career, because then it just helps you prepare and get an understanding on what all those different departments are going through. Same level again, just because it's a smaller staff. You kind of stay humble. It teaches you teamwork. So whether you're an intern, whether you're a full-time sales rep, whether you're a VP or the GM, no job is too big or too little. You kind of have to work together, and everybody, like I said, everybody's pulling tarp, everybody's cleaning up, everybody's doing the big jobs and the little jobs.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I'll share a story. I know. So I had a similar role. I know we've talked about this in our conversations in the past, but recently with the Hartford Yard Goats AA team here in Connecticut. And, my third day, I had a nice shirt and tie, brand new leather shoes. And the GM, Mike Abramson, came up to me and goes, "Yeah, just so you know, you might want to bring some shorts and, some sneakers. Annual tarp pulls tomorrow." So you learn really quick, but you get to wear all these different hats. And that's so great. And I think, especially for you, someone who got into management relatively early in your career, right? It's beneficial that you're able to see all these different departments and how everything works. Because at the end of the day, in management, you need to be able to communicate with all the different departments, right? So speak to that and to leadership. Like, what is it about management that attracted you to it and said, this is what I want to do? And then a follow-up to that is, for those, in the industry right now who may be an AE, who's aspiring to get to that inside sales manager and work their way up into leadership, like, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think, most sales reps, if they want to be great, and those that have the drive to be great, realize they can't be an AE forever. And so management is their way to move up the ladder. And you got to find a way to stand out from everybody else. Everybody's competing for the same job, the same promotions. And so always outworking the people next to you. I mean, the biggest challenge, I say, to becoming a manager, things that people don't think about is, from an AE perspective, you kind of control everything, from your day-to-day, short-term, long-term. You control the amount of money that's going in and out of your wallet just because of the commission aspect. And then once you become a manager, you're kind of taught to rely on other people. And so you don't have a direct impact on your own wallet. And so it's realizing how to manage those people, understanding that everybody's different. Some people need to be pushed a little bit harder. Some people, you need pats on the back a little bit more than others. Some people you kind of just teach them, train them, and let them go. And so it's just trying to figure out everybody's personality and kind of what management style works for each individual that works underneath you.
100%. And that's such a great point. It's never going to work if you can't adjust to everyone, right? You can't just talk to one person, to the whole team and one style. That's just never going to work. You have to be able to communicate and understand and be empathetic to people, but also, people get motivated in different ways. So I absolutely love that point. In regards to career seekers now, let's take a little pivot over to them, as that is the core of the podcast, right? And I think, this is always one of my favorite topics because it's been so important in my development as a young professional, and that's mentorship. So in your experience in the industry, what have you seen as the importance of having those mentors, and what, in your experience, has those relationships look like?
Yeah, so for me personally, I had a mentor growing up. I had several, pretty much every location that I'd been to, there was somebody that I kind of leaned on. You use those people not only for advice, but to go to for questions. Those are people that you trust, people that you expect to make you better. But at the same time, those are people that, you mess up or you're not doing something right. They need to be there to push you as well. So through the good and the bad, they should help you with your career. A big one for me was Bill Terlecki. When I interned in Binghamton Mets, he was the GM there. Then he took the GM job in Gary, Indiana. That's who offered me my first position. So just after my internship, I obviously made a good enough impression where he offered me a full-time job. And so I went out there and, a lot of the stuff that I learned today, was him. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without him. So I leaned on him quite a bit, and at the end, we leaned on each other. You kind of grow during your time in this industry, and at that point, with the experiences you have, he's not just your mentor anymore. You're now friends. He would ask me a ton of questions. We both had some bonds. We both went through cancer, so we relied on each other about that. But any career move we made, once I became in a manager's position, we would talk those situations out. How it was good, how it was bad, different situations they were going through. And it, like I said, it became more of a friendship than it was a mentor and apprentice relationship at that point. And even during my time here, I see it with reps. They can come to me. I have an open door policy. They know that. They come to me all the time. But there's people that are more seasoned than others. Obviously, you're going to have that on any staff. And so there are several people that rely on a couple of our reps, and they ask them a ton of questions, and they're for that too. And I think those people that are mentors realize that that's kind of their way, and it's teaching them lessons and becoming managers in the future.
Yeah, it's a two-way relationships, right? And it's paving the way for the next generation. And I always like to say too, the best mentors that I've had in the industry aren't going to give me an answer. If I go to them and say, here's X, Y, and Z situations, what do I do? They're going to ask me questions, and they're going to make me figure it out. Because at the end of the day, especially in sales, like, you're not going to have someone on the phone telling you what to say, right? Like, you're going to have to think on your feet. So that's really, in my experience, what I love about mentors. And again, the thing that you hit on that I love too is the friendship piece. I think that's so crucial. It's like, not every mentor is going to be your best friend. I know one of my main mentors, Rob Thompson, he always likes to talk about, you have 5 different mentors. You have the ones that are your best friends that you can always go to, then you have the one also that's like going to tell you how it is, and it's going to knock you down a peg, but they'll always be there to bring it back up. But it's just making sure those relationships are organic is the key. And I love that you hit on that. So I'd like to pivot now a little bit, because I the point of overcoming cancer. And again, congratulations on, crushing that battle. But I think that's just so fitting now for what everybody's going through, right? And we're all facing adversity right now in one way or another. So do you want to speak to that? And like, what are some skills and traits that you would like to share with the audience for overcoming and facing the challenges and overcoming that adversity?
Yeah, and so I think most people that have spent 10 or 15 years in sports go through adversity all the time. Some of those situations are bigger than others. For this, nobody had ever dealt with a pandemic. So if I'm being honest, the first couple of weeks, once in March, it kind of hit here in Nashville, and things started getting shut down. Our entire staff got sent home, and we had to work from home. And so it took us a couple of weeks to kind of figure out, okay, what do we do from here? Just because we had never dealt with anything like this. And so over the first couple of weeks, we were kind of scrambling, and then, we started reaching out to other teams and figuring out what they were doing and implementing our kind of own ideas. And we took ideas from the staff on what they wanted to see and what they needed at the time. And so, we do things that where staff members lead meetings now. We had them reaching out to other reps from other teams just to kind of pick their brains and use this as a time to better prepare themselves for when we do start selling again. Sharing best practices or just kind of get an understanding of what their situation was too. And I think that helped them realize that everybody was going through the same situation, and it wasn't just them, and it helped them kind of deal with this. But we also used the time to have fun with it. We had We did like an MTV Cribs every meeting. We would meet 2 days a week, and we would do an MTV Cribs where a staff member would get to show off their workspace at home. We had a talent show where everybody kind of brought out their own talents, whether it was trying magic shows or playing the piano, or one guy dressed up as Joe Exotic and did a little rendition of the song "I Am a Tiger" or whatever that is. So just having a good time with it, and that's what you got to do. Everybody's going to go through difficult situations, and it's realizing that that's an opportunity to make you better, make you stronger, but also not to take it too hard and have fun with it as much as you can.
I absolutely love that. I think, one of the biggest things that I've adopted with all of this is you have to stay positive. If you're not positive, you've already lost. The game's over. So you have to stay positive and just look for ways to continue to grow and get better. And I think for me, the most encouraging thing, at least from, on our industry side, has been seeing those collaborations with teams and sharing best practices and things that a lot of teams didn't do in the past, right? But I think this kind of made us take a step back and realize, like, are we really competing against each other? Like, we're in different markets. Like, yeah, obviously the Yankees and the Mets and, you got things like that inner city, but at the end of the day, like, we're all trying to work together to accomplish a goal. And I think that's on a smaller scale. That's the same thing with a sales team, right? At the end of the day, we're all going to grind to be on the top of the board. But at the end of the day, job number one is to bring in revenue for the team and crush our team goals. So I absolutely love those points. And pivoting now to career seekers, right? The industry is going to open back up and the interviews are going on. I know you guys are looking for some positions now. So someone who is hired at all different levels, right? Like, what are some of the traits and skills that you look for when you're looking to bring on a new team member?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing is the intangibles. I'm not saying that you can teach everybody any skill. I'm not going to go out there and throw a football like Tannehill or run people over like Derrick Henry. But if you can communicate, and I think if you're passionate about sales, then we can teach you to sell. But it's all those other things that I can't teach you. So you touched on earlier, positivity. Sales is a cycle. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. It's a roller coaster at times. So you got to kind of figure out how to ride that roller coaster and figure out a way to be positive all the time. The other thing, it's a grind. It's a lot of phone calls, a lot of touch points, a lot of emails. And a lot of times you're not closing a lot of those deals because that's just how sales is. It's a numbers game. And so it's putting your head down and kind of, forcing your way through it. And again, staying positive, not getting down, and realizing that at the end of the day, if you're putting the work in, then you're going to get the results. And then also, team first, like you said, most people that work in sports, or especially work in sales, they're competitive. That's kind of what drives them. That's what helps that passion. That's what helps those sales numbers. But also realize that we're a department, and the team should always come first. Here, anytime somebody sells something, we celebrate as a team. So we have a bell that they ring and go around. We high five each other. Obviously, that's a little bit different now with the pandemic. It's more of a long distance high five and celebration, but always celebrating not only the individual but the team as well, and just realizing that I know it's cliche, but the name on the front should always come before the name on the back of the shirt.
No, I absolutely love that, because at the end of the day, like, I'll give an example. With my time at the Yankees, it's funny. The gentleman who sat next to me, our managers would walk by and say, "You guys are taking each other's phrases," and they loved it. I mean, that's just what we did. And it was, if he got a sale, like, what works, right? And it's just because at the end of the day, it's the same as, like, if you're on a basketball team or a baseball team growing up in high school, like, it's one goal. So I absolutely love those points. So right now, obviously there are teams that are hiring. But it's not like it normally is, right? It's a very slowly but surely coming back. So there's a lot of downtime right now for individuals, not only that just graduated college, but there's a lot of individuals that unfortunately got let go from their teams. So what is some advice that you would give to those career seekers now, in regards to things that they could be doing today to put them ahead of their competition when teams do start to hire and the industry does start opening up?
Sure. I think honestly we could probably spend an entire segment on this question. I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but I think the biggest thing, and maybe the biggest misconception or misunderstanding, and don't get me wrong, education is super important. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for my bachelor degree in sport management from SUNY Portland. But it's what did you do during that time, and what are you doing now during that time while you're at school? I'm going to look at experience more than I am a 4.0 GPA. again, not saying that education is not important, but anytime that we're hiring, we want people with experience. I think some people think, okay, well, I don't have a full-time job, I don't have experience, I'm just going to give up. That's not the case. What I mean by experience, because a lot of the positions that we're hiring for now are kind of entry level or lower level, and so it's what did you do during your time while you're in school? How many internships did you do? Are you doing a part-time job with a local sports team or organization? Even here on game day, we have people that sell tickets on game day. We have mobile ticket specialists that help outside. We have fan services. We have ushers. We have security. So just get involved that way, and then also, get involved with your athletic department. A lot of athletic departments, have a smaller budget, so they take volunteers. So volunteering that way. Point number 2 I would make is, connections. You talked about earlier. It's tough to get into this industry. Some of it is about who you know, not about how good you are. You reached out to me, asked me some questions before, and had me jump on here. So it's just doing those things like that. Reaching out to as many people as you can. I've been in those shoes where I was looking for a job, or even, early on in my career when I was looking to kind of take that next step. And so I would call and pick the brains of, not only people in my position, but also people in management positions, and just kind of see what they were looking for and people that they were hiring. The one thing I will say is, make sure that those relationships are mutually beneficial. The one thing that kind of turns me off real quick is, somebody that immediately connects with me on LinkedIn, and then before I even know their name, they're already asking for a job. That's not the way to do it. Just stay in touch with that person. You want to build a relationship, build a rapport with that person, and at some point, it is going to benefit you, but you want to be able to benefit them later on too. You don't know where you're going to be in 10 years. You don't know where they're going to be in 10 years. And so it's just, maintaining that relationship and helping each other as much as you can.
Two fantastic points. I love the first one that you made with go get experience. I'm a huge advocate for those who listen to the show or frequent the show is go out there and get a job. Experience is king. And even if you can't, I didn't have, I had the Hartford Yard Goats, and that's it in Connecticut. You have the Sound Tigers, but there's not that much, but you have your athletic departments. Even if you were to get a job at a Dick's Sporting Goods, or like I did, I went and got a job selling memberships at a gym. You're getting those transferable skills that at the end of the day, that's going to help put you in a great spot. You may not have had the opportunity with those teams. The second one is those genuine relationships too. I think that is just so key. You don't just reach out asking for a job. It's like the same as you're not going to reach out to someone just asking, hey, do you want to buy tickets? Or do you want to buy tickets? No, you got to establish the rapport, build that relationship, and then see where it goes from there. So I love that. And I think I cut you off, but I think you wanted to speak to, was that transferable skills or?
Well, the last thing I just want to say is one more, and this might actually be most important, is find what you're passionate about. I think the big mistake that people make is, sales is the easiest way to get your foot in the door, but don't do sales and don't take that position just because it's the easy way in or the easy way out. I think a lot of people, I don't want to use the word fail, but I think a lot of people are turned off by sports because they do assume that sales is the easiest foot in the door, and they get a job in sports and they just think that's how all jobs are, and so they kind of get a distaste for working in sports. But that's just because they're not passionate in sales. If their passion is community relations or marketing or sponsorship, and they would have tried that out, I think the story would have been different. So just figure out what you're passionate about. You're not going to be successful regardless of what industry and what area if that's not what you're passionate about. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I'm the best salesperson in the world. I think I'm a pretty good salesperson, but if I were out there selling insurance or garage doors, I definitely wouldn't have been as successful as I am, knowing that I'm passionate about sports and I'm passionate about selling sports products.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny, we just with the student athlete interns we brought on, we actually are finishing up tomorrow an activity where they have to design a My Why and come up with a nice graphic. Like, what drives you? What's your passions? Where do you want to go? And I think that's just so important with our society today, how fast paced and all the moving parts and people being stressed and all that stuff. And people forget, honestly, what drives them, why they started. So I think that's just such an important point. And if you're not going to be 100% invested in your career and you're not excited to go to work every day and enthusiastic, you're not going to make it. You're going to burn out. So I absolutely love those points. And I don't want to take too much more of your time. I so appreciate you. I know our audience does as well, taking the time. So, before you jump, I'd love to kind of just leave the floor open to you and let you run wherever you want to go with this. But what would be some final thoughts that you have for career seekers, and kind of take this wherever you want to go?
Yeah, I would just want to add, again, I've been in those situations. I've been in your shoes for the folks that are watching right now. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with other managers and reps within our organization. I don't mind jumping on a call with you. I don't mind if you live in Nashville, grabbing coffee, grabbing lunch, pick my brain. All I ask is that you come prepared. I don't want to. Your time is valuable, so is mine. So I just don't want it to turn into us just sitting around and not having anything to talk about. But always willing and always happy to have those conversations and help people out as much as I can.
I love it. I love it. I mean, not everyone in the industry is like that, but most are. So it's like sales. You have to take a chance and reach out organically. So I absolutely love that, Jim. So again, thank you so much for the time. I think I can speak for the whole Interview with Influencer community, but thank you so much for the valuable insight. So on behalf of Mike, that's Jim, and on behalf of Game Plan U, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And we'll tighten up this weekend. Let's hopefully take down the Bills, and we'll see all of you next time. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.